Thank you for joining today, this afternoon on our autism awareness session. We will be talking today about mental health, and this is in celebration of Mental Health Awareness Month. We have some amazing speakers today, and it is going to be an afternoon/evening filled with tools, resources, and also hints and tips for you to be able to navigate autism and mental health. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's hope that we don't have any more technical hitches and you'll be able to see my slide. Please do use the chat, ask questions, because we want to hear those questions. We will be having a Q&A session, which is going to be at the end of the webinar. Just bear with me as I share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. So Angelica, you just give me the okay that you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so sorry, I'm just admitting people coming in. So this is just a reminder just for people so we can enjoy and make the most of the afternoon, is to just keep your cameras and your microphones off, because otherwise it will disrupt the afternoon and it will take a little bit more time. Feel free to type your questions, as I've said, in the chat box. And also questions will be entertained at the live question and answer after the presentation, and we'll have our panel members. So the agenda for today, what we hope to get through is for us to build inclusive communities for autism and mental health. We are looking at autism and mental health, supporting families raising autistic children, and my journeys as a parent breaking the silence. Also a panel for Q&A and an interactive discussion at the end. So I am the founder of Autism Circle of Support. I hope by now that everybody has heard about Autism Circle of Support and is talking about it. We'll be talking a little bit about what we've been doing recently. We have been traveling across the world, so from UK to Nigeria, and we are, covering lots of ground, which is fantastic. So at Autism Circle of Support, for those that don't know Autism Circle of Support, it is an NGO where we empower autistic individuals and their families through advocacy. So we're looking at inclusive resources, making sure that they're bespoke, and looking at culturally sensitive, tailored support for those who have autism, making sure that their unique needs are met. And also it's more about making sure that we allow people with autism to fulfill their full potential. So be able to give them the resources and the tools to be able to do that and ensure that they're empowered to live a fulfilling life. So what is Autism Circle of Support, as we just said? So first of all, for some people joining us, and I know that our invitation has gone far and wide, people may not be familiar with the word autism and might have heard it, don't know what it means. So autism spectrum disorder is a lifelong neurodevelopment condition. It affects the way the person communicates, interacts with others, processes information, and experiences the world around them. So it's called a spectrum because it affects people in different ways. So if you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. It really varies. There will be definitely signs and symptoms that are occurring many people with autism, and that will help for the diagnosis. But as I say, I have two sons with autism and they're very, very different. So it affects people in different ways and to varying degrees. So when somebody says, what scale is your son's on? What part of the spectrum are they on? Sorry. Are they severe? Are they, not severe? We don't use that terminology anymore. It's not acceptable because actually it's how that person, how they cope with life. They might be verbal, they might have a job, but also find other aspects of their life very, very challenging. So it's not fair to kind of put them into that kind of box. It's a spectrum, so we look at it as that. So somebody with autism will be, they'll feel different, have a different way of thinking, feeling, and experiencing the world. Please do remember it's not an illness or a disease. It is a neurodevelopment condition. Many autistic individuals have unique strengths and may also face challenges, as I've said, in areas such as social interaction and sensory sensitivities or repetitive behaviors. So ACS so far. So as I've said that we have been traveling across the globe. So my husband and I recently came over to Nigeria, and we had a few parent workshops over in Nigeria. So looking at ACS, it has grown drastically within the last year or so. It all started with my lived experience as a parent of two sons with autism. So I have a 9-year-old who's autistic, whose name's Gabriel, and I have a 17-year-old Nehemiah who is also autistic. So Nehemiah is autistic and has a mild learning disability, and Gabriel is autistic and has ADHD. So I know what I had been through throughout my journey and wanted to look at how could I help other people? How could I help to empower them? What could I do to make a difference for people living on an autism spectrum and their families? So we built a supportive community. And how do we do that? We looked at setting up parent support groups. We've also got advice clinics, so advice and support clinics, which I also complete with an ABA analyst who's a very close friend of mine. And also looking at what can we do to team up with organizations and schools. So we've expanded across the borders, as I've said. So the ACS started in UK, and that's where I'm based. And then we have now expanded into Nigeria, and we're hoping that that's just the beginning. So we're looking at those who are underserved communities. So those who are hard to reach, those who may have children with autism but have never heard about autism, those who will look at autism or that child with autism and just think that that child's being naughty or that child has been cursed and just not have that level of education to understand what is going on or have access to resources, support, therapies that could be able to enable and empower that child to do better and live life fulfillingly. So we've promoted autism awareness, and that was in April this year. And we did that by having our parent workshops. We also had a conference as well in Nigeria. So we look at advocating for education. So we want to make all places inclusive. So whether that is a school that is a mainstream school, as we'd say in the UK, or it's a school that has children with special needs in it. So it's making sure that everywhere, every space is inclusive. And the only way that we can do that is by educating people. We know that, yes, awareness is there. People know about autism awareness, but now we need to look at the acceptance. So we're moving on from awareness to acceptance. Also empowering voices, making sure that those people who do have autism, who are on the autistic spectrum, how are we making sure that their voices are being heard? And so that's what we're doing with ACS. We're making sure that we are giving them those tools, those resources. And also I'm seeing that through my sons, definitely. It's making a difference. So mental health awareness. So we are looking today at mental health awareness. And the reason why we're looking at the mental health awareness is because May is the month of mental health awareness. The actual week, I believe, was from the week commencing of the 12th of May. Mental health awareness started in the early 2000s and it was set up by, I think, the Mental Health Foundation. It has been successful in the sense of has promoted a lot of, tools, resources, and also awareness around mental health. It's a taboo. People don't like talking about it. People find that, I may be embarrassed to talk about my mental health. And also, it's not in some communities, people don't talk about it at all. So this is what it's about. We're here. I'm I'm happy to see loads of people here. So it means that you want to learn and that you are interested and want to make sure that people with mental health have, great support and also have the resources that they need. So the focus of Power of Community is this year's theme for mental health awareness. So it's looking at focusing on what is that community support? How do we support people with mental health as a community? It also emphasizes the importance of connection, support, and belonging for individuals with mental health. So not being ostracized from their community is about making sure that we are looking after them. It's accepted. It's not just something to be embarrassed about, and we as a community are enabling that person and helping them with their well-being. So we're coming on to our first speaker. So we have the wonderful Zainab Akinshipo. She is a special educational needs therapist. She has a qualification in psychology, so she has a BSc, and she has experience of mental health in the last year of working with children with special educational needs. She also is very, very passionate about mental health. Both speakers today are very passionate. That's why we got them here today. And she has also got experience in volunteering within that field. And most recently, Zainab volunteered at our Autism Circle of Support events in Nigeria. So Zainab, I'm going to hand over to you. I will stop sharing and then reshare your slides.
Good evening. It's nice to see everybody here. My name is Zainab, and okay, that's great. My name is Zainab, and I'll be talking about community and connection. Okay, community and connection, supporting mental health in autism. Okay, so why are we talking about community and autism? The theme for this year, as Miss Charlotte said already, the theme for this year's mental health awareness is community, and basically it's talking about basically the essence of picking communities to talk about the power of community in providing positive overall well-being, in developing positive mental health, the power of connection in helping individuals build a positive to build a positive mental health. It's very important to know that mental health is a shared responsibility. And what does that mean? For an individual with a stable mental health, it's most likely affected by the people around the individual. And if an individual faces or has any struggle with, or faces any form of mental health challenges, it is likely to affect the individuals around them. And it could be in school, it could be at the office, it could be the family. It is likely to affect the individuals around them. Our communities shape our life experience. It shapes the connection, it shapes our personality. The community we live in shapes who we are. I mean, as children, when you give for a mother who gives birth to a child, the first person the child is seeing is the parent. You know, the character, the experience the child gets from the parent inflicts does something to the child's personality, something to the child's life experience. It builds the child's character in a certain way. So as when the child goes to school, meets some friends, you know, the neighborhood. So it actually shapes our life experiences. And for individuals with autism, we cannot overemphasize the importance of inclusive community. And we'll be wondering inclusive, because naturally, or so it seems to be like the individuals with autism or any form of neurodevelopmental challenges are often excluded from the community. You know, you see them as, oh, they're not as equal, or you see them as, you know, they're vulnerable, or they're too, you know, so they're often excluded. So when we talk about inclusive community, it's a life-changing experience for them. So let's get right into the next slide, please. Briefly, Ms. Chavez already spoke about autism, so I'll just go through it briefly. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition characterized by repetitive, inflexible patterns of behavior or interest. There is the certain pattern that they follow, more like a routine, and so that's one of the characteristics that makes individuals with autism autistic. It also autism also tends to affect the communication, the language, social interaction with the individual, and the behavior. But Ms. Charles also mentioned earlier that every individual is different, right? So your maybe what makes individuals with autism similar is the fact that they have probably repetitive behavior. There's a form of stimming. There is sensory overload. There is yeah. So that's what makes them similar. But an individual with autism or your child with autism isn't the same thing as that. It can never be the same as another child with autism. There's always that distinct um differences. And it is very important to know that autism is not a mental illness. It is not a disease. It's a condition. And we all have varied conditions that make us different. However, the mental health can be greatly impacted. Now let's talk about what mental health is. Okay. Mental health comprises the emotional, psychological, and social well-being of an individual. It basically comprises our thought patterns. It comprises our emotion. The mental health has to do with the brain. It's basically like the health of the brain. So we have the physical health where we have, your spine, your body aches and stuff like that. So that's more, I think that's what I call it. It's more like the physiological health. But in terms of mental health, it has to do with the health of the brain. And the brain, functions, it aids the function of our emotion, our thoughts. So your mental health basically comprises of it. It basically affects how we think, how we act, how we feel. It affects our relationship with people. And it's also very important to know that when people hear about mental health, they think that the opposite of mental health is, mental illness. So if you struggle with any form of mental health challenges, they assume you have mental illness. But mental illness is different. Yeah. But when you have mental health challenges, it's basically, I mean, everybody actually goes through some level of mental health challenges. You are broke, you're saying, oh, I'm depressed, or I feel sad. That's a form of mental health challenges. For mental health challenge, your mental health basically, I mean, having a good mental health help individuals cope with life stresses, helps with your ability to work, your ability to communicate with people and contribute to your environment. But the moment you probably struggle with the form of you have some form of challenge, then it's likely to affect your everyday life. So it's more than just the absence of mental illness, but paramount for our overall health and quality of life. Okay. So now we'll be talking about just briefly talk about the differences between mental health and neurodevelopmental disorder, or mental illness rather, and neurodevelopmental disorder. So mental illness, which yeah, the mental illness is when you have like a disturbance in we said that mental health comprises your emotion, your cognition, your social interaction. So basically, mental illness is more like a distortion in those factors. Is there when there is there's a distortion or disturbance in the an individual's cognition, your thought pattern, your emotion, or your behavior, and it tends to cause distress in the individual with struggling with mental illness and causes distress for the people around the individual, and also an impairment in your daily life. Neurodevelopmental disorder, on the other end, examples like autism, ADHD, is basically a childhood condition. So it's when there are delays or difficulties in developing specific skills during childhood, which impacts our language, impact your social interaction, sometimes impact your cognition, impact your cognitive impact your communication, impact your cognitive functions, and also impact your behavior. So the only thing that makes them similar is it emanates from the brain. They're all related to the brain function and also affect your behavior, but they are different. Remember, I said neurodevelopmental disorder is character. It often occurs during childhood. Mental illness on the other end can be can be affected by stress. Environmental factors, stress. The certain triggers that on environmental basis that can affect that can cause mental illness or mental disorder, unlike neurodevelopmental disorder. So now let's get right into today's business. Okay, so we'll talk about the challenges individuals with autism are likely to face. Now, individuals with autism struggle with communication, language development sometimes, emotional regulation. So sometimes they struggle with, expressing their emotion, expressing how they feel. And due to that, they tend to be a form of discrimination. Now, due to that, they tend to be a form of fear, so that tends to be a form of fear that emanates sometimes due to certain pressure or due to the feeling of not being able to express, people misunderstanding you, right? So individuals with autism have higher rates of mental health conditions like anxiety. A child, for example, I'm going to give an example, a child who goes to school and is non-verbal, for example, right? So the child will most likely find it difficult to express its needs, express its emotion, right? And there are certain individuals who does not understand the child. So they're likely to, especially in a school where they're not properly trained, they're likely to put, isolate the child, just leave the child because he's not able to communicate or he's not verbal, so things like that. Things like that makes a child. I mean, be it autism, being neurotypical, being neurodivergent, things like that makes the child feel less of themselves, right? Then you tend to properly put so much pressure on the child that the child tends to lose some of self-esteem. So they tend to face conditions like anxiety, depression, isolation, and some form of an eating disorders, which is often due to misunderstanding, also a form of social exclusion where you are excluding the child, and sensory overload, which where they're unable to communicate their emotion. The child is feeling heat, the child is feeling hot, the child is feeling extremely cold. There's a form of, but the child can express himself, and there's just that isolation. Now, a community's response can protect or harm mental well-being, which is, it's not just talking about community, right? It's talking about what kind of community around these children. Now let's next slide, please. According to statistics, autistic adults or individuals in general experience higher rates of anxiety and depression compared to the general population. That's really Studies indicate that up to 79% of adults with autism spectrum disorder may meet criteria for a psychiatric disorder at least once in their life. Now, we're not talking about the level of mental health challenge where it probably just comes within a day or two, and we're talking about a psychiatric disorder, which is most likely can affect the child or the individual for a very long time. So they're likely to meet criteria for a psychiatric disorder at least once in their life, with anxiety of being 26% and depression being 42%, which is quite common. Next slide, please. Now, why does community matter? Now, when we hear about community, we see it as a group, community is a group of people that come together. Community is a group of individuals that share same value. Yes, that's what community, but what does having a community actually do to individuals in general? It provides a sense of belonging, inclusiveness, and purpose. There's a way you feel when you are in a group that cares for you. There's a way you feel included. You feel like, yes, I belong in a place. Okay, you are in a school, you have your group of friends. There's a form of fulfillment it gives. It also supports emotional regulation through connection. For individuals, for example, I'm going to give an example of children, for probably an example of individuals with autism that stay in maybe an inclusive school or or find themselves in a mainstream school. There's probably a child who sometimes is non-verbal but struggles with maybe probably during the cold, because he's not able to express his emotion. He's not able to express that, oh, I'm so cold, can the weather, can I get a sweater or something? The child tends to probably seem unsettled. But when that has been observed constantly, there's an individual, it could even be the care of the child that has been, like a body system, and is able to support the individual. It could just be probably just holding the child and giving the child the hug, asking, are you okay? even though the child is nonverbal. So it helps the child regulate his or her emotion better because there is that support system. It also creates a safe space for expression and growth. There is the need to, show out. There's the need to, you're not shy, you're not feeling intimidated, you're not feeling like you're going to be shut down. There's that need to show, to show yourself, to express yourself, and it also promotes overall well-being. As we said earlier, the theme is basically to highlight the power of community, which promotes a positive overall well-being. Community is key to promoting a more inclusive and understanding environment, which helps to reduce stigma and discrimination. Now we're going to briefly talk about how we can build. Now we're talking about community. Now we're going to talk about how we can build a mental health positive environment. And if you think about it now, we're talking about school, society, workplace, and families. And these four are more like the major um community that we find ourselves in our life. A child grows up, you find yourself with a family. The next thing, you're going to school. As you grow older, you're going to, you're working in a place, you're meeting your friends. So what can these communities do? What role do they play in actually building a mental health positive environment? An environment that builds, a positive um feeling, a positive mental health. Now let's talk about school. One of the things schools can do is enable flexible learning, enable a flexible learning for individuals that probably have that struggles with that some form of learning, that have some learning struggles. How do teachers, how do head of schools, how do head of learning, how do they incorporate children's learning needs to their curriculum? How do they incorporate that? What do they do? So a child who probably is non-verbal, a child who struggles with reading, a child who struggles who has eyesight issue. How do you incorporate your learning into your curriculum, making it so you are able to you know um help the children or satisfy their needs in every possible way. Also providing sensory tools for individuals that struggle with sensory stimulation challenges. Also teacher training. Train your teachers, train your head of schools, train your head of learning. This is a form of training, right? So there are lots of free training. Sometimes it doesn't have to be paid. There are lots of free training that we see everywhere. They should you can learning never stops, right? Next we have our workplace. We know that in Nigeria there's still an evolving law that has to do with neurodivergent employment. So we have our police to incorporate, incorporate a lot of neuro. They have amazing skills. That I saw an article recently. I think a place in Argentina where a man who has a child with autism, and it was the child, a lady actually clocked 27, and he was wondering what can actually do to help this child, and he built a restaurant. And in that restaurant, it is actually the first establishment that will recruit neurodivergent individuals. So his staff are majorly neurodivergent individuals. And he said they bring a lot, and the differences make that place bloom, makes it, bubbling. People are really, because of their different characteristics, their different skills, right? Now for our society, acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Accept these individuals, help them. When you see them, do not treat them like they are on that they're not, do not look down on them. Provide a sensory friendly environment for them, sensory friendly activities for them. For the family, I would also like to say kudos to families with individuals, kudos to families who have a child, sibling, individuals with developmental conditions. Kudos to you. Continue to advocate. Well done, Miss Charlotte. Continue to advocate for your children, for individuals with autism, for individuals with developmental disorder, and show them as much love as you can. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about, so earlier we spoke about what community, various community in our lives can do to build a positive health, mental health. Now, what are the barriers to inclusive community? One of the major barriers, one of the major challenges is stigma and stereotypes. You see an individual with autism, you assume that they are not capable. You assume that they do not have the skills just because they're non-verbal, or just because sometimes they struggle with emotional regulation, or so you just see them, and you just see them as, nah, I don't think they can do it. So you already have that notion in your head that they can't do. So that's the stigma we're talking about. So there needs to be a lot of number of probably like a restructuring, cognitive restructuring. So that is one of the barriers to inclusive community. Then lack of autism training. Earlier when I said teachers training, and not just teachers, even parents, even family members, even our organizations. You should go to organizations, teach them about these topics, teach them about these conditions, the strength. They shouldn't just look at the side that, the challenges, because truly we all have that challenge. We all have our challenges, right? So look at their strengths, see where they fit and see what they can do. They need to be aware of these things. Then inaccessible environments, there's some a level, sometimes we struggle there are struggles with environments that are not sensory friendly. Then misunderstanding sensory differences. It is very important to observe your individuals that you work with, or your child that you work with. Observe when they tend to feel unsettled, or when they tend to feel, then they tend to have like sensory overload. Or observe it and see how you can help them. So rather than misunderstanding them, or seeing that they're actually being too dramatic. Some people say, oh, that's too dramatic. It's probably just cold. It's that's really one of the so that's for the challenges to inclusive community. Now let's talk about what we can do. Practical steps to building an inclusive community. Number one, listen to autistic voices. Observe. You are not them. You actually will cannot know how they feel, right? I mean, you've because you've worked with them probably as a professional. Yes, you're able to you know observe some things, but you have to observe them. Then the people, sometimes ask questions. There's some that, I mean, they're quite not the ones that are verbal. Ask questions. What do you want? What do you need? What do you want me to do for you? Then observe them. Observe when they feel unsettled. Observe when they feel uncomfortable. Observe the activities they like. Then train your community leaders. We've already spoken about this. Train your teachers, train your police force, train the last mile officials. Everybody needs to be aware of this, right? Because that's what building an inclusive community is. Everybody needs to. You can't be out. You can't do something you're not aware of. You have to be aware of these things and see how you can help. Promote autism acceptance, not just awareness. It's not enough to just spread awareness, put poster, autism awareness, post on your status. That's a really good thing. It's thinking in people's brain. But promote it. Promoting autism acceptance, it means that it starts from you. What do you do to incorporate them into your world, into your society, into your organization, into your community? What do you do? Accept them. Create sensory friendly environments. We already spoke about that. Support parents and caregivers. Parents and caregivers with of individuals with autism. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. Well done. Support them in any way possible that you can. Provide support. If support system, it could be financially, it could be emotionally. Be there for them. Then encourage care education. I think this is very important in schools, especially. We have an inclusive school where you still have to separate the neurotypical from the neurodivergent. So that's not what we're talking about inclusive. You can educate the peers in their class. Let them know what autism is about, let them know their skills, let them know how they can help them. So, there's create a body system where, there's a neurotypical helping the neurodivergent. The neurodivergent is also helping the neurotypical. There's a form of fulfillment and inclusiveness that builds. So encourage peer education. This is very paramount, especially in schools. Call to action. So this is basically call to action for you currently on this Zoom meeting, right? This is for me. This is. I mean, we've spoken about the community. We've spoken about, what the community can do. But you are also part of the community. What are the things you can do? Educate yourself and others. What we are doing now, before I did my slides, I had to educate myself further. I learned some new things about autism, about neurodivergence. I learned some new. So educate yourself and others. Keep educating. There was a time I stay in a sort of local area. So there was a time I saw a child. People were there. They were saying, "Ah, this boy does not stay one place. He's always walking. Sometimes the guy will almost run to the street, because he's not aware of the dangers yet. So it will, just run out." So I had to actually tell them they were Yorubas. It was a struggle, but I was still able to explain to them that, oh, this child is not like he's doing it intentionally. You have to educate him, you have to guide him, let him know the pros and cons when walking on the street. So they were just like, they were saying, oh, he's deaf because it was non-verbal, right? So I said, no, it's not death actually. There's just that this challenge, there's a delay. So they need to actually, so those are the kind of things when you don't just see people and allow people to insult them or people to just say things. When you are there, correct them, bring them, let them know what's up, right? Speak up for inclusion. Speak up for inclusion. And in a school where they are practicing inclusive community, but they are not practicing, they're just practicing maybe integration, right? Speak up. Let them know that what this is not just inclusion. Everybody has to be involved in this project we're working with. Volunteer. It's a great opportunity for me volunteering for Autism Circle of Support, and I'm so glad that I took the step to do that. So volunteer for outreaches, for things like this. Volunteer with autism friendly organizations. Be patient and compassionate. Oh my God, when I started working with children with special needs, this is one skill I thought I didn't have, but I was able to learn because they're just amazing individuals. You cannot not love them, right? So it's very important to be compassionate and patient. Sometimes, they'll test you, but remember that it's just them. That's who they are. Beautiful creatures, beautiful, amazing individuals. So it's very important to be patient and celebrate neurodiversity, celebrate awesome people, celebrate their differences, right? Celebrate them. And I'll be wrapping up now, and I would like to say thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zainab. What a powerful presentation. That is it. So
Thank you.
call to action. Thank you so much, Zainab. Zainab is a fantastic volunteer. I mean, all the volunteers that volunteered when we were in Nigeria, we had to stop the registration because we were just overwhelmed, which is fantastic. So, everybody has their part to play, as Zainab said. It's not just about awareness. We create awareness every single year. It's not that people don't know what autism is. Some may not, but it's about that acceptance. So I want people, as I start pulling up the next slides, in the chat to, if you can put in the chat, what are you going to take today? What's your call of action that you're going to do? Because it's not just about you coming here today, sitting on the webinar, listening to us. It's about what are you going to do to make a difference in your community for somebody who is on the autism spectrum, that individual or their family. So as I look for the slides, I'd like to see some people in the chat talking about or committing themselves today, what they're going to do. What are you going to do to make your environment more inclusive? So I'll just get the next slides up. So our second speaker for the day is Janet Oluwajo-Wonlo. And Janet is here to talk to us about her experience with autism. She's going to give us a little bit of in-depth knowledge of autism, mental health, and in the community. She's going to look at it from a different aspect, though. So you're going to have a full-rounded knowledge of mental health, autism, and all the differences before you leave here today. So Janet is a behavior analysis technician. Can't get my words out today. And she is a clinical psychology graduate. She is also a mental health advocate, and I know that she is extremely passionate because when I met her recently last month, she told me all about her work and what she's doing, and she's doing great things in her community. She is the founder of Teenage Art and Craft, and she is a writer. She's a pencil artist and an author of a craft book on gift box making. So she's a woman of many, many talents. So I'm happy to have her today. Janet, do you want to come on and I will put your slides up now?
Yes, thank you so much, Ma, for having me. And good evening, everyone.
Okay, babe.
Can you all hear me, please?
Good evening, Janet.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Good evening, can you hear?
It's nice to, thanks for joining us today. And yeah, it's nice to be in your midst too. So today I'll be talking about supporting families raising children with autism. And today we are going to be dwelling more on the emotional weight that parents and caregivers carry, especially when they are raising a child that is diagnosed with autism. And we are going to be focusing more on burnout, anxiety, depression, and how we as a community can offer help and also support so that at the end of the day, we are going to have a holistic system. So yes, so I'm going to start by giving an analogy. So if yes, please, can you all hear me? I just want to be sure.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Janet, we can
can.
hear you.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so if you've ever been in an airplane before, so one of the things that they normally say during flights, like in-flight speech, so they will say in the event of an emergency, place your oxygen masks over your mouth and nose before helping children, the disabled, or any persons requiring assistance. So, and this instruction is one of the things that is difficult to follow up, especially as a parent. Like, I mean, having to tell you to leave your child first, instead place the oxygen mask on your whole nose before you now help your child or someone that you are giving care to. So, and this is the reason why they have to say that, because at the end of the day, while they are trying to place oxygen masks on their child or probably someone that is dependent on them, they themselves may be losing oxygen. So that means they may faint. And at the end of the day, they are going to not be able to finish up placing the oxygen masks on their child. And at the same time, they themselves will not also be able to get help. So which means it's both it's detrimental to both the parent and also the child's health if you are not taking care of yourself. So yes, and with that, I'm going to be talking about how important it is for us to talk about the mental health status of parents. So firstly, what is mental health? Okay, so many people, when they hear mental health, is like, oh, what comes to their mind is maybe schizophrenic patients, whereby you see people that walks naked on the roadside, by the roadside and all. Meanwhile, mental health is actually not the absence of illness. It is okay, sorry, I'm trying to yes. So it is more of a state of emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it is an holistic concept whereby it affects how we feel, how we think, how we act, how we even interpret what we just did. So that's what mental health is all about. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so yes, we are going to be this time we are going to be talking about common mental health challenges in parents. So from statistics, based on previous researches, one of the peculiar things is they noticed one thing, which is the divorce rate in families of children with autism. So they noticed that the divorce rate is quite higher, although there are some studies that, like, we have conflicting studies, but there's one that stood its ground when I was trying to make the research. So I found out that there's 23.5% increase in divorce rate among families raising children on the autism spectrum, while those without a child diagnosed with autism may have divorce rates of about 13.8%. So you can see how large it is, like how large the number is for parents of children with autism. And the reason actually vary. It can be as a result of coping mechanism, the support that they're actually getting, and at the same time, individual circumstances that are beyond control, probably the environmental factors and so on. So that is why this is a very important topic for us to talk about, how mental health challenges can come up with parents that have children on the autism spectrum, and how we as a community can come in to help them out, and also so that at the end of the society can be a whole, an holistic one. All right, so the common mental health challenges in parents, we have guilt and self-doubt, we have caregivers burnout, we have anxiety and stress, we have depression. So for guilt, for those of us that probably work with parents, that work with children on the autism spectrum, one of the things that you see when interacting with the parent is you see them have guilt. They ask you questions that to check if they're actually doing enough, or if they are making the right decisions for the life of their children, which is not a bad thing. They are just concerned. Every parent will be concerned about their child, but there's excessive worry, there's guilt, there's self-blame, and ultimately you also see what we call burnout. That means it is not just ordinary "I'm tired," but this time around they're actually going to be excessively irritable. Or in fact, some therapists may even have one or two encounter with them, and it will look as if, oh, why is this woman always irritable? Meanwhile, they're actually going through a lot. And that is why this mental health needs to be dealt with also with parents. All right, so yes, please, next slide. So now talking about mental health challenges in families, yes. I particularly like this one because one of the things that people miss out on when they talk about in families is they miss out on siblings. So it's always like when you hear family, they think it's just the mother, the father that carries the weight. However, it also extends to the sibling. So in mothers, you can see how sometimes you can see them that because, especially in the society that we are in, where sometimes, I won't say all the time, sometimes mothers can serve as like the primary caregiver in terms of support, in terms of emotional availability and so on. So you can see mothers becoming hypervigilant, or probably have this self-blame, or more of I can do better. And also, it's not even helpful that society sometimes give mothers this look, one particular look, especially when their child is throwing tantrum, like the child with autism is throwing tantrum. And the only thing they can is like, can't you manage your child? It's something around that side. Or if they see the child trying to regulate and just moving about or rocking or flapping their hands, and you could see glances like going around and all. And this actually deeply affects parents, especially mothers, if the mother is in that setting. So this can lead to increased risks of depression or anxiety. So now the anxiety can come in constant worrying, whereby they're like, oh, what should I do next to avoid another tantrum, or to avoid passerby looking at them with a gaze that is not kind. Then for fathers, you can see them, maybe for fathers, you may see them not expressing so much of their problem. Maybe, I mean, I have to put maybe, but it does not mean it does not also affect them. Some of them may end up suppressing their distress, and suppressing the distress can lead to they having to like withdraw more. And at the end of the day, like that's also another problem, like increased stress, especially the financial stress. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we
Yes,
can. We
yes,
can
we
hear
can.
you.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So
can hear
sorry,
you.
just to come in, can those who are not, could you just remember to mute yourself, please, if you're not speaking? Thank you. Go ahead, Janet.
Then, okay, so for the fathers, it can be suppressed. So at the end of the day, distress can also come back and maybe leads to depression for the fathers too, or anxiety or any other thing. However, for siblings, so recently I carried out the research to see the impact on siblings. However, there is actually an impact, especially in scenarios whereby siblings have to take some of the caregiving role. So it can it can mean they may feel neglected because you will see situation whereby the attention is always on the child with autism. However, it's also affecting them because it's like, oh, am I not here? Like, when will you praise me? When will you do this for me too? Then this the divorce rate statistics I gave earlier is actually as sometimes it may be as a result of marital strain, because now the concern is more on the child diagnosed with autism, which means what they normally do before as a family may not be present anymore. Take for instance, maybe before they jog, there's a lot of family time. Father and mother spend quality time together, but because they had to do a lot of caregiving, running from one therapy, trying to be present for the child, the support and everything. So it can lead to marital strain, which at the end of the day may tell on their own, which can tell on their marital life. So yes, next slide, please. Yes, so I intentionally brought this out because you see this caregivers burnout is quite a big thing, especially in the world today. So caregivers burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion. So this thing is something that is common because imagine you're going to work, coming back from work, you have to hear your child's therapy talk about what they did that day and hear the feedback and then the assignment, then helping the child to do the assignment. So it's like a job that never ends. So it's like it just keeps going and going in circles. And sometimes I see parents complain to me that it's as if this is not who they used to be. So this caregivers burnout is actually something that is quite common because at a point, I see most parents forgetting what it means to actually take care of themselves. And it's not like I'm putting blame. I'm just saying these are things that are quite obvious and we need to really look at it. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, yes. So before I go into, okay, yes, so signs and symptoms of mental health disorder. It was after a while I realized that mental health disorder may quite be strong considering the population I'm talking to, because having to talk about disorder, it's like a different concept. Like that was why I had to put down notes. So the note is to tell you that just because you notice all these things that I'm going to be mentioning to be present does not mean you should diagnose yourself. So rather, you should seek professional help so that they can do proper assessments and then come up with a diagnosis if at all is present. So however, instead, I'm going to title mine as red flags to watch out for. Yes, I think that suits it better. Sorry, the error is actually from me. I take the blame. So I rather call it red flags to watch out for. So so the first one, cognitive changes. So one of the things that you're going to notice is actually you having a negative change in mood, no, negative thought process, I mean. So things that maybe someone visits you, instead of you seeing it as, oh, this person is visiting me, you started noticing that, okay, instead you are seeing it in form of, oh, you are just coming to come and stress me. Why are you here? You didn't even, who called you? Who sent? Like, so it's like you're seeing it in the negative light of, oh, is here again for another gbebo, something like that. So it's like you begin to see the negative situation of this negative aspect of every situation. So that is the cognitive aspect. Then okay, yes. Then the next one is the emotional changes. So don't forget that what we think actually affects what we feel at the end of the day. So since you already feel, oh, you already have it in your mind that, okay, probably this person is coming to come and do baby room in your house. Sorry, for those that don't understand Yoruba, probably this person is just coming to poke nose in your family matter. That's why they are coming. Meanwhile, they may have another reason. So at the result of that, you may start giving them, you will start noticing that you are actually irritable. So excessive irritability, like then you can also notice that you may start to worry. So those are part of the signs that you may start feeling sadness, hopelessness. Some people may also mention the fact that they don't know what it means to be happy about something anymore. It's like, oh, it's just, okay, you are here, okay, everything, okay. Like it's a state of being numb. So yes, so that's also another one. Then from there cannot be behavioral changes. So the behavioral changes can come in form of they start withdrawing from activities that before they find pleasurable. So another thing could be you notice that your sleeping pattern is not too good anymore. Maybe before you can sleep for, let's say, 6 to 8 hours, but now you can barely get 3 hours sleep. That's insomnia. That's like another thing that is planning to come up. So that's when you should know that, oh, these are red flags. That means something is not going well. And that's when you should watch out. Then also another behavioral thing to watch out is your eating habits. You see parent of children on the autism spectrum, probably always like they are running helter-skelter to make things work for the child. At the end of at the expense of their own food, like their own eating pattern, then they'll forget to eat breakfast. Then by the time they will start it's no longer like consistent. So those are part of the red flags to watch out for. Then I also need to mention that sometimes the red flags can be in form of physical symptoms, things that are actually not there before, but you can't even explain why they are there. Like you just started noticing that, okay, you're having headache, constant chest pain, things like that. Yes, so those are red flags that you should watch out for. And lastly, which is very important, is when you start noticing thought of suicide or death, more of, why am I even here? I wish I'm not here. Those kind of thoughts. In fact, you should seek help. You should seek professional help at that point. Yes. And I need to also mention these symptoms does not mean I'm diagnosing you. So instead, seek professional help is always best. Next, okay, yes. All right. So before I talk about the tips for self-care and maintaining mental health, I'd rather start by talking about a recent story that happened to me. And that was when my sister called me. That was I think last 2 weeks. And she called me and was like, oh, Janet, you just need to come. So I was like, okay, because for me, I have this, I prefer it to be in emergency tone, like what code is it, so that I can know what to pause and what not to pause. Then she told me that this is urgent. So she said so apparently she gave birth recently, like the child will be 1 year very soon. And then one of the things that she's dealing with is the caregiving part, the role. So she had to so she told me that it's as if she has forgotten who she used to be, because the caregiving role is taking a whole toll on her. Mind you, this is a parent with a child that is not diagnosed with autism. And then the caregiving role is actually taking a toll on her. I'm not measuring both sides, but I'm saying if it can be that much for her, I can only imagine how much it is for children, parents that have a child with autism. So on getting there, she just told me, Jenna, just be with the child first. Like, I want you to be the one carrying the child. I want you to help me with this, bring this. And apparently, by the time I started those things, I realized how much a whole lot goes into parenting. Like, yes, it's like I call them tip of an iceberg. The tip of an iceberg is more of, oh, carrying the child to school, taking the child to therapy session. But the underneath, you're going to see quite a lot of things that are embedded. So that is why these tips for self-care and maintaining mental health is actually quite important. So first thing first, things that we're going to be considering is self-awareness. So we need to be self-aware, because by the time you know who you used to be, when you are shifting away or drifting away from who you are not, you are going to realize. So you need to be self-aware, ask questions, ask insightful questions like, okay, what exactly is stressing me right now? So the moment you can figure what exactly is stressing you, there's actually it here. Yes. Okay, so the moment you can decide what exactly is stressing you, then at the end of the day, you will be able to know when to seek for help. Then second one is set realistic expectation. So what I see most times is I see parents, yeah, so okay, yes. So I see parents sometimes trying to have this perfect parenting, okay, all the toys must be kept where they are supposed to be, no water must be on the floor, bottles must not be on the table, unattended to. So every now and then they are always on the lookout for what exactly to do to make sure that they have the perfect home, the child walking, oh, the socks is already, they want to quickly, just to ensure that there is this perfect, so they are trying to reach a state of perfection, which is impossible. So set realistic expectation. Nobody's perfect. Family relationship is not perfect. At the same time, I won't, what's it called? Your parenting can't be perfect. So yes, so learn to celebrate small wins, take breaks, set realistic expectations, then have routines that can help you reduce stress. And flexibility is very important when you are setting realistic expectations. I'm having a child that is a toddler. Let me even, yes, imagine they are even twins. And then at the end of the day, there are toys on the floor. And it's a normal thing. You are going to a house with toddlers. What do you expect? But instead, you are hoping that, okay, so that when anybody enters the house, they can say, oh, this is prim and proper. Oh, the toys, the house is tidy. Who set the rules? Who set it? So yes, so that's another one. Then the third one is ensure adequate sleep, healthy diet, feel the joy and in positive social relationships. So yeah, it is not bad for you to be human. I need to mention that. Yes, we are models to children, like as parents, you're a model to your child. And funny thing is, especially children that have a very strong imitation skills, children on the autism spectrum that have strong imitation skills, one thing you do, they're already picking it up. So yes, I get it that can give you anxiety of, oh, I don't want to let loose so that they won't go and pick the bad habits. But still, don't forget the human in you. Go out, socialize, take no, feel the joy, be present. Be present, yes. Have adequate sleep, eat the food that you like. Yes, those things are also very important for you. Then also physical activity. Everybody knows exercise is a good way, it's a good thing to everybody, actually, irrespective if you're a mom or you're not a mom. Now, meditation. So okay, so one of the things I would like to dwell more is on this meditation, because I see parents say, okay, something like I can't even switch off the thoughts in my head. It's almost like, okay, it's as if you are in constant motion, like your brain will just be telling you, this is the next thing to do. Quickly do this, quickly do that. Next thing, run here. It's like, so the moment you try to say, oh no, I just want to rest, you're already thinking of, oh, okay, so the food that we eat tomorrow must be matched with this. So it's like constant thinking, constant activity, you will break down. So this meditation is going to be so helpful for you. Do breathing exercise. One thing breathing mindfulness exercise do is it helps you reduce anxiety, it helps you reduce stress, and it takes you back to the present moment. So you can try and do deep breathing, or you can do controlled breathing, whereby you breathe in But rather than breathe out immediately, you hold on, you can count to 3, then you breathe out, but in a controlled way, not just out, no. Instead, you take it like little by little. And if possible, you can even call it back to your sensation, like maybe a part of your body. It can be, so it's like you are actively taking note of which part of your body is getting relaxed by breathing. So yes, so it's going to take you to that present moment and take you grounded. Yes, and if you notice, the therapy aspect was well bolded, and it was bolded for a reason. Therapy, your child, because yes, your child may be diagnosed with autism and then they are getting support, probably through early intervention, ABA therapy or VB or whatever therapy they are on through. Seeking for help, it is not something to shy away from. Yes, seeking for help is not something to shy away from. As a caregiver, it is not bad to talk to a mental health professional to offer safe space so that you can get to talk about your grief. Don't feel sad. Don't feel bad for yourself don't feel bad for having some thoughts that are actually not right. There are times that you may be doing something and then your child will do something that is very hurtful. And an automatic thought may come to you and then you won't really like it. You will be angry at yourself for even having that thought. Yes, you are human. It is not bad. I'm not saying have bad negative thought about your child, but I'm saying having the automatic thought, it is you being human. So forgive yourself. Instead, seek help. Seek a safe space where you can discuss your thought process, where you can discuss your fears, where you can discuss your guilt and your emotions freely. Yes, so therapy. All right. Okay, so now the role of community. So we already started by talking about the role of community anyways, because the community starts with you. That was why the self-help tips was very important it is very important for us to mention. So next thing now is for us to look at how other community can help, like the role of the community at large. So first thing is shared care models like respite care. Thank God for our culture, because I feel like our culture is a bit collective, like it's collectivist culture right now, considering we have aunts, we have siblings we can call, we have people that we can drop the child with. I mean, I don't know how it is, maybe it's not general, but this respite care simply means seeking for a place, maybe nannies, maybe grandma, just for a temporary, like a short period of time where you can actually okay, pause, take a break, that kind of a thing. So then also education and awareness, which is one of the things the Autism Circle of Support is currently doing through education and awareness. Also digital communities, especially for areas where reaching us physically may not be possible. Then this digital community, like for instance, the webinar we are currently having, we have different people from diverse places, and yet it is possible because of these digital communities. So this is also one of the rules of community. Then support groups, Autism Circle of Support. I like the fact that the name, even I don't have to explain that. So yes, we need to join support groups. As a parent with child diagnosed with autism, join groups. If you go online, in case you are after joining Autism Circle of Support, you can also go online, get more groups to join so that they can share helpful tips, they can provide support. You even be amazed at many things that they'll be mentioning, and you're like, oh, so you also go through this. So how do you manage this? So it makes it better. Also, religious and cultural inclusion. So what's it called? In churches, they should be able to talk about how we are different, but yet we shouldn't, there should be inclusiveness. So how the brain, how neurodivergence happen. So like religious settings should not just talk about the neurotypicals. They should also talk about how to support the families of children on the autism spectrum, probably other neurodevelopmental delays. Yes. Then next slide, please. So how can we help? Like, take for instance, the story I shared about my sister, I had to go there, which was me offering my time, maybe with little resources, I don't know. But we can offer our time, we can offer food, we can offer resources. We can, in fact, giving a toy to a parent is a resource. Yes, so yes, so those are like ways, because trust me, toys are actually quite expensive. So you can offer your time, food, resources, then you can listen without judgment and show empathy. Sometimes parents just want to talk. Yes. In fact, don't even try to like stop them. Just let them talk. Let them talk about what they did in the day. I remember one time I was joking with a colleague of mine that, okay, why is it that when you go to parent houses and you are about to share what you did with the child, the parents end up telling you about how their day-to-day activities work? So I was making joke that, oh, it's almost as if I'm listening, like I had to, like as if you are doing therapy for the parents now. Because at the end of the day, this kind of thing, this kind of support should be encouraged. You should listen, because indirectly, they actually just want to talk to you. They want to share their problem with you. Even if they don't want you to solve it, they just want you to listen and show empathy. And empathy is not sympathy. Please, let's know the line. So it's not you say, oh my God, or you start crying or something. So empathy means you are walking alongside with them. You can listen without judgment, and they can see that you're actually present with them at that period. Then also, you can also show up consistently, yes. Then you can support mental health initiative in workplaces or communities. Yes, maybe there is something they are doing in workplaces, or they are trying to talk about something in workplaces, and you know that there can be inclusivity, like speak up on their behalf. Speak up, yes. Then also, you can also help them find professional mental health services. Yes. So you can, if you have somebody that you think you can recommend them to, a professional, don't hesitate. Yes, and if possible, if you can even help them pay for it, it's not bad. You're also helping at the end of the day. So before I wrap up, I want to mention that I want to mention this, that firstly, don't forget to breathe, like to breathe, yes. Then be positive and flexible in your goals. Stay connected to positive energy around you. Let exercise become a routine. Ensure to get sound sleep. Take breaks before it breaks you. Yes. Take breaks before it breaks you. Yes. And reach out for help when it is needed. And also, I want to also mention that how you care for yourself reflect how you will care for your family, because it is only someone that has good mental health we also share that same positivity to people around them, for them to also have good mental health. So don't manage yourself, because indirectly it's going to affect your child, either you like it or not. So don't also forget to ask for help. And it is not a sign of weakness, but rather it is a sign of help. And conclusion, mental health is a very important part of overall well-being. So just like you can't function well with headache, you can't function well with irritability, with caregivers burnout or whatever, then let's all support people around us. And at the same time, whether you're a professional, a neighbor, a sibling, or a stranger, you can actually be part of this community. One act of kindness, one support, one conversation. Before you know it, we're actually going to be able to make a world of difference. Yes, thank you once again, Autism Circle of Support.
Thank you so much, Janet. That was amazing. So, just looking at, your final words, those talking about listening, is that importance there is about the active listening, because it's not just listening to respond, it's listening to actually be there to provide that empathy, and it's not sympathy. So, what I also liked was you spoke about self-care. Now, I know, self-care is important, but do I make time for it? Probably not. And it's not great. So whilst we're looking, or I'm going to pull up my slides because I'm going to talk now, which nicely, Janet's presentation now nicely leads on to mine. I'm going to be talking about burnout and I'm going to be talking about the realities of being a parent with 2 children with autism. So I'm going to take away a pledge to make sure I do one thing that's self-care for me at least once a month. So what are people in the room, in our virtual room, what are you going to take away? What self-care thing do you already do, or are you thinking about doing to keep your mental health, looking at things that you can do to de-stress, unwind? What are you going to do? So we've spoken about, mental health and looking at the family, looking at you as a parent, talking about burnout. We've also looked at mental health and, looking at those communities. How do we help? How do we support somebody? Looking at the different ways in it manifests itself. And now I'm going to talk about my journey as a special need parent. And it's, even today, just talking about how difficult it is. It's not an easy journey. And I think sometimes because we mask as parents with children with special needs, people don't really understand what it is like, what we're living in the reality. So in 2019, there was 970 million people globally were living with mental disorder, with anxiety and depression, was the most common. So, this is the most common amongst those who, this isn't narrowed down to parents with special needs or special needs children, but it's just something to take in and think about. This is not just, 1 or 2 people. It's a taboo subject, as I've said, especially in minority ethnic groups. It's not talked about, and we need to talk more. We need to be open. We need to be supporting people, and drop those stigmas, etc. So I'm hoping today is you're going to reach out, you're going to see a parent or a parent with a special needs child and see them struggling, just like Janet did. Her sister called, she went, and that means the world. So starting the journey. So my journey started I had my first son, who's now 17, in 2008. I probably think it was about, he was about 2 years old, went for his 2-year check, and I knew that something wasn't quite right. I was a first-time mum, so it was dismissed, and I was told, well, it's just because you're a first-time mum, you're overreacting. He wasn't speaking, he, wasn't playing with his peers, he, wasn't meeting some of his milestones, just really wasn't socializing with any other children within the nursery. There was loads of opportunity to, even though he was the first child and the only child, he was amongst loads of children all the time. It was then a fight to get him diagnosed. I knew something was wrong, and then, I had to fight to get him diagnosed. My second son, who's Gabriel, was born in 2016, and yeah, he got diagnosed when he was 3, and it was also very stressful. I think reason why I'm talking about the diagnosis is because that is the thing that really impacts on your mental health, and nobody really understands how much it does. So I was just saying today actually to another parent is second time round actually was harder. Not because, you have to, I've already got a child with autism. Yes, I know what it is. And I think that's why it was more upsetting, because I know what the challenges are. I know that the system is not built for children who are neurodivergent, regardless of where you live in the world. So I know what it's going to be like for them growing up. I know what stress it's going to be for me as a parent, having to be adapting to their needs, having to be an advocate, and just trying to survive, really. So it was about navigating emotions, the denial, the grief, the guilt. You'll look at your child and you say, actually, is he answering to his name, or is it just me? Is he turning, or isn't he? When they start talking about, oh, actually, he might have social communication delay. Do they really understand my child? Are they just trying to put a label on him? I mean, it's that first bit, just trying to accept it. Denial is what continues to make you feel terrible. Because when you don't accept something, it manifests within your whole being, your body, your mind, and it takes over. You then have the grief, which is you're grieving a child that you thought and had all these dreams and hopes that they would be a neurotypical child. So we're not saying normal, we say neurotypical child. And, you're grieving that your child may not have that. Your child may not grow up and get married. Your child may not grow up and have children. Those are the kind of things that you start to feel. You start to feel guilty. Is it my fault? What did I do? Did I eat something wrong? Did I, what was I in the wrong environment? Did I do something wrong when I was pregnant? So you start having that guilt, and that guilt eats you up. You cannot sleep when you don't sleep. That Janet and I think Zainab also talked about insomnia, the impact of you not having enough sleep. It then impacts on your family. You're unable to care for them. You're unable to care for your children. So, it was then a fight, having to advocate for the right support. The system doesn't enable you to, to not have, anxiety or depression. It just doesn't work with you at all. And I live in the UK, I'm based in the UK, and I know when I came to Nigeria, there were similar issues there. And I think it's globally. A lot of it is to do with finances and people being able to, or local authorities or local governments having the finances to make spaces inclusive, adapting to people with autism. But it also, they don't realize the impact that it has on the carer, the parent, the sibling, and also that individual with autism. So also discovering the strength I didn't know that I had. Um, I wouldn't be here today, honestly. This is not something that I could ever dream that I would be doing. Autism Circle of Support was never something that I would have considered. I didn't really, know about autism until my children were, or my first son was diagnosed with it. So, you have that, everyone says, oh, you're so strong. Look at you. You've got two children with autism. You're doing great things. Yes, I am, but actually, I'm still human. And, actually, even though I may look strong and appear strong on the outside, that, I'm not always a strong person. And actually, I'm just human. I'm not superhuman at all. But I did discover a strength that I didn't know that I had. I turned into an advocate, for autism, having to fight the system, having to advocate for other parents, showing them and navigating how to navigate the system. And so, this is where Autism Circle of Support was born, and that was the start of my journey. So the impact on my mental health. So it did have, I say like as if it's gone. So I'd say it definitely had an impact on my mental health. And I think that any special needs parent, I won't say, and obviously we can't say that every parent who has a child with special needs, will have some mental health illness, because that's not true. Everyone is different. But I know for me, there was the anxiety, the exhaustion, the burnout. In 2023, I just didn't know myself. And Janet spoke about that, and so did Zainab talk about, not recognizing yourself, looking in the mirror, thinking, oh my God, who am I? I'm just kind of going to doctor's appointments. I'm working full time. I'm, coming home. I'm, being a wife. I'm being a mother, doing all of those things, and also trying to navigate, this whole new world of special educational needs. There was definitely burnout. There was the feeling of, isolation from others, because actually you can be in a room filled with people, but still feel so alone, because actually everybody is, around you, and they are talking about, their children, and not that you're envious of their children, but you feel like, oh my goodness, nobody really knows what I'm going through. Nobody knows the sleepless nights that I'm having. No one knows all the issues that I have to deal with toileting when, my son is 9 years old, and we're still having to go through that. It's exhausting. I'm just gonna pause because I can see someone's drawing on the screen. I'm not sure who's doing that. Doyin Sola, if you could just have a look at that. So as I was saying, the feeling of isolation from others is real. So, taking away today from some of those tips that we've talked about around asking somebody if they're okay, supporting families, supporting parents, supporting siblings. I can't emphasize it enough. is you just want somebody to reach out and say, are you okay? You may not give them an honest answer, but it's just about making sure that you know that that person is there, that person's available, and I know that I can depend on them. So the toll of constantly fighting for support, I have had to fight, unfortunately, for my children to be in education. And if you've got a child, or you're not a parent yet, but you might have nieces or nephews, and you see they go to school. If you're not in the UK and you have to pay for education, then you know it's about making sure you've got the funds to pay to go to school. So I know with my children in the UK, even though yes, they have special needs, and yes, they have the right to go to school and we don't pay, it is still attributed to money at the end of the day. So you have a local authority or a local government, if you're watching from abroad, that will have a pot of money and they will allocate it to a child with special needs. It may mean that some schools will ask for more because they provide more therapy and it's more tailored, bespoke support. And I've had to fight for my children to have the right education and the right support. But the difference that it makes is phenomenal. When they are in the right education, they are in the right system, and you also, as a parent and a family, are putting in, all of the work and support you can, it makes a big difference. But that took it took a toll on me. And I can remember, going to my doctor and just saying to my doctor, I don't know what to do, and was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. So, that was it, coming on to realizing that I needed help too. I am strong. I know I'm strong. I've been told by people, but I'm only human, as I've said before. And it's about making sure that, I took a step back and said, look, this is going to end badly if I don't open up, if I don't recognize that I need help, that actually things are not going well at the time, at this time. And, that was my husband. He was there. He's an amazing husband. He's an amazing father. And he also helped me during those difficult and challenging times. So we're looking at that support network. That community is really, really, really important. So breaking and rebuilding. So I'm just going to try and I'm not sure if anyone else can see that somebody's writing on the screen. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but just going to take it away, sorry, just so you can see the screen properly.
I think the person might. Sorry, I think it might be a bomber, and you can just maybe remove him for a minute.
Okay, I don't know who's doing it. Okay. It should be okay now. Hopefully I've taken it off the screen. So breaking point and rebuilding. So in 2024, I had a really, really bad accident. I had a very, very bad burn, which was third-degree burns from my whole of my forearm and my hand. It meant the whole of, and I don't want to go into too much graphic details because it may make people feel squeamish, but basically the skin had totally come off my arm. And that was due to burnout. I was going constantly. I was, working and coming home and working and having, working with the children, taking the children to activities. Me and my husband was just going full on. And, cooking when you're tired is never a good thing. I was in the kitchen, I was exhausted. I was, like, oh, I'm really tired. I don't want to buy takeout. I want to just make something quickly and then go to bed. And I just wasn't focused, and it resulted in something that is life-changing because I don't have the same movement in my right arm anymore, and that was my dominant hand. In a sense, it's a bittersweet, as they say, moment, because it forced me to slow down and reassess and reevaluate my life and what I was doing. And I had that time to reflect. I had that time to clear my head, to look at actually that accident could have killed me. And, what am I doing? looking at what is it that, I want to do, what am I passionate about, and, really looked at Autism Circle of Support, because Autism Circle of Support was, we launched it in 2023, very, very soft launch, but I wasn't really doing much with it. But the burn injury forced me to slow down. I had to reassess what was important to me and look at, what is it that I wanted to do. I needed help. So accepting support and being vulnerable, it forced me to do that. It forced me to take a step back, not to think that, I can do everything. I probably still do think that I could do everything. I'm a little bit stubborn like that, unfortunately. But it's about making sure that, you are looking after yourself, as, Janet has said before. If you don't look after yourself, you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's about making sure that your cup is full before you try to pour into others, before you try to look after your partner or your children. It's also, I looked at rebuilding with purpose. So what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to have an impact, within society? What do I want to have my legacy in? And it's really about being that advocate in autism. So it nicely leads on to the birth of ACS. So it was turning the pain into purpose. So, even though something terrible or tragic happened, and is still happening, because I'm still, having therapy, physical therapy, having, looking at, operations, what I have to have going forward. It's still been a positive. I found the positive in something that was so negative or so painful, so life-changing. And it has been, Autism Circle of Support. Founding the Autism Circle of Support, so it was there. I, then had that time to reflect, and I said, look, why don't we bring this to Nigeria? My husband is Nigerian. I'm not. That's the reason why we, looked at Nigeria. He told me, about his experience growing up with children who were special needs. And he thought that, it would be a really good idea. And so we started to make those inquiries and look at, would it be possible? What would it look like? We wanted to create safe spaces for parents and children. We launched our Autism Circle of Support clinic. And it's an advice and support clinic, which is absolutely free. It's a virtual clinic, so people can join anywhere in the world. We offer it to Nigeria and UK, not because we are closed off to anywhere in the world, but purely because that's where I have people, and I will be able to guide people to get access to resources and to support. So, if you're not in Nigeria or the UK, please do still, pop an email into us, and we can look at how we can support you. So also bringing the awareness to Nigeria and the UK. I've spoken about it and how we've come there. So we had as we've said, we've had our workshops and our conferences in Nigeria, and we're hoping that will be an annual thing with Autism Awareness Month. So you've come here today, and I think from all of the speakers, including myself, we're asking you to take something away from today, because it's not only about you coming here, listening. I'm so grateful for the support. I'm so grateful for people tuning in, especially on a Saturday when I know people have, it's their only downtime. But it's about, what are you taking away from here? So we're calling you to action. So share your story. If you are a parent with a child with special needs, share your story. It helps others feel less alone. I can't say that enough. I know when I talk to other parents, just the way, their faces light up, because it's somebody that finally understands how they feel. It's somebody, they're not alone. They're not the only ones that's feeling like that. Because sometimes it just makes you, like I've said, it makes you feel so isolated. And prioritize your mental health. If you don't prioritize it, who is going to prioritize it? So you might have those feelings, and we talked about the red flags that you might have. Seek help, professional help. This is a starting point, but it's about making sure that you then take that second step in making sure you seek help. join support groups like Autism Circle of Support. We're always looking for people to be part of our bigger community, wherever you are in the world. And, we'll be glad to have you within our team. Let's break the silence together. So let's break that silence about mental health, the stigma associated with it, looking at autism also, the stigma that's associated with that. Let's try to support, be able to speak openly and break the silence together. So I will give you some information. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing, and I think we're going to do the questions. I'll share that with you after. Let's do the Q&A now. So I have asked people to start putting those pictures in the chat box. Have we got the questions in the chat box? Have we got the questions in the chat box yet? Daisala, if you've got a question to the panel, so Zainab and Janet, myself, are there any questions that you'd like to ask us? So you've now got maybe 5 minutes. We've run over a bit so we can answer any questions that you may have. So many people and no questions. Let me go and have a look in the chat. Okay, so we've had, how can SEM be included in the Nigerian educational curriculum? And what can we do to get government agencies to take inclusion seriously? Okay, so Ugonna, thank you for that. Do you want to unmute yourself? Is there anything else you wanted to say on that? So I'll try and answer it the best I can.
Okay, first of all, let me start off by saying thank you. When we met in Nigeria, you made me feel like I was talking to myself. So thank you for that. That was really, like you rightly said, the more you talk about it, the more you realize that you're not alone and you actually have a community, and that community can be supporting if you just open up the door and let them come in. So why I'm particular about special education needs in the Nigerian educational curriculum is because even with all the revisions that have been done, there are no cut out plans for inclusivity for children who are special needs. I'm talking Down syndrome, I'm talking about cerebral palsy, I'm talking about autism, ADHD, even dyslexia. There's really no clear cut-out plan. You can actually see that no one is taking cognizance of these things. And as much as we have so many support groups now springing up around the world, and in Nigeria, I can mention 5, just one hand. I'm not really seeing how the government is being pulled into this, so that it's not just individuals and private organizations or NGOs that are doing the work. It's how can it be put in such a way where even down to the average Nigerian can have access to the basic requirements for their children, because most of these children will remain undiagnosed probably because of funding, for whatever reasons they might be. But if these children do go to school, what is being done about having them, immersed in the system so that we actually consider them and how they can be better off with the education system as it is in Nigeria. And I'm speaking from the angle of Nigeria because that's where I'm based and that's where I will be speaking from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ugonna. Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you too. Ugonna is a very passionate person and is a mother of a child with autism and has actually written a book, which I took some copies of. We'll be sending them out to families here. So for us at Autism Circle of Support, we are taking the angle in a sense of we don't want it to just be another NGO that is there in the community and providing support to families, although that's definitely going to be a big part of it. But the main part is for us to influence policy, for us to start going into schools and mainstream schools and making them more inclusive. And we actually have a strategic plan to do so, and we're going to be starting this year. So, we're going to strike the iron while it's hot, as they say, because I've, been to Nigeria, and, I've seen, how society is at the moment, and it's not just unique to Nigeria in a sense. It's only because I've been there, and we know that spaces are saying they're inclusive, but do they actually understand what inclusivity means? And how are we grading that? What's the quality assurance? Who's going in and checking them? So here in the UK, we have an educational system where, they have to be responsible. They have to be accountable to a board, or a governing board. And what's that in Nigeria? And how are we doing that? Can they demonstrate it? And that's what we want to do. We want to be on the table, talking around that table. And so I am definitely trying, and that's a promise that I can make to you. I can tell you that I'm definitely trying, and I'm putting all my efforts into it. I can't make any promises. Yes, Ofsted, but I can't do anything without you guys. So I need people behind me also backing me. Who's there? Thank you for that question. Is there any other questions? I'm just having a look. You can unmute yourself and just ask a question. You don't have to put it in the chat. If there's any other questions that you'd like to ask today.
Okay, so it's not actually a question. Based on your response to the question, so I'm into the education system. I teach English, and I have a school. So if there's anything I can do on my end, and as regards the basically just having it into the education system, go ahead and reach out to me, and I will be happily willing to volunteer any service that I can give in that regard.
Thank you so much. Definitely. I'll definitely be in touch. Any other questions? No? No questions? Okay, so let me wrap up. Let me just make sure that I haven't missed anybody in the chat before I go on to conclude the session. Right, let me just share the last of the slides, and then we shall wrap up. Okay, so if you want to send us a message, please do. You can contact us on our email. I'm also going to leave the last slide up. What I wanted to do, as we have spoken today, as a very emotive subject, as the speakers here, and I will reiterate, we are not clinicians in this area. I'm definitely not a mental health expert, so I can't give any diagnosis. What we've spoken to about today is just from our opinion. If you are feeling like you are experiencing a mental health crisis, then please know that you can make contact with organizations out there. I'd say if you're having a crisis, call your doctor, go and see somebody, seek professional help. This is not enough. This might trigger something. This might make you recognize that you might be feeling that you could be experiencing a mental health crisis. It's about making sure that you know where to get help. These slides are here. I will make sure that they're also up on our Autism Circle of Support website, so you can access them. There are some generic helplines on here. It's because, I've tried to capture all globally what is available, because I don't know where people are watching from. You could be watching from anywhere in the world. So, key takeaways from today. So mental health is not the absence of illness, but the presence of well-being. So autistic individuals experience higher rates of anxiety and depression. So community inclusion and awareness significantly impacts autistic mental health. Caregiver burnout is real, and I can very much vouch for that. And parents often face guilt, stress, and depression. Supporting families requires shared care models, empathy, and resources. Breaking the silence means validating mental health experience in special educational needs families. Inclusive communities reduce the stigma, and they promote mental health wellness for all. So thank you very much. These are our contact details. If you do want to contact us, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. That's where we share whether we're having webinars or useful resources. They will all be on our social handles. So I don't know if there's any last words from yourself, Janet and Zainab, before we close the meeting.
Oh, yes, nothing. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thanks so much. I really appreciate it, Mami.
You're welcome. Zainab, anything?
No, I do not. I think
Okay.
it's just to thank you and thank everybody. Thanks to everybody that came on board to actually listen to us. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you so much for attending, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. Thank you and take care. Have a good rest of the weekend. Enjoy. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom.
I thank you too. Thank you.